Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko tēnei pō. Just a short call. I just want to lay down a couple of issues around this bill because, as others have said, it's technically obscure. I'm sure the people tonight listening to it would like us to talk in a way that's comprehensible. Just as the TPPA itself has been obscure for many people, I went to a number of briefings where I came away none the wiser because there's a lot of rhetoric and there's a lot of promotion and there's a lot of jargon, but actually there's not a lot of common sense and clarity. And I want to focus on one particular aspect of this, which I think is most disturbing and which we have an experience of in other countries that we should learn from. It also irritates me when everyone says we're pro free trade, as if there's no such thing as fair trade. The Green Party believes that trading is an inevitable and important human activity that has always and will always take place. Communities of all sizes have always traded. That's one of the critical ways in which we interact. It's not rocket science and it can be fair. But free trade is the myth. There's nothing free about privileging corporations over community rights. It isn't free, it's a misnomer, just like the TPPA is not a trade deal, it's an investment deal. And it would do the public a service if we actually talked about things in an honest way and actually talked about the need for fairness, because I don't know if anyone in this house wants to deny it, but some corporations own more than the economy of this entire country and have enormous powers. Why would we privilege them over the needs and rights of citizens? It's any more than they already are, as Marama Fox says. It is already an unequal playing field. And one of the ways in which this is played out in this bill, and I am going to talk about the bill, fear not, is investor-state disputes, which Barry Coates began to talk about. And I want to talk about one example of why we're opposed to the TPPA and this provision, which our government has been adamant in including. And that's the experience of other trade deals in other countries. Take, for example, the company known as Oceania Gold, who own the Waihi mines, the Martha Pit and the mines underneath people's homes in Waihi, and they've owned other mines, particularly at Reefton in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and they tried to sue El Salvador for $301 million recently in a trade court, and they lost. But guess what? It took 7 years. 7 years where the El Salvador government, not the wealthiest government in the world, had to defend its people's right to object to gold mining polluting their water. It cost them $12 million. They will be compensated for some of it. But it cost them more than the money. It cost them a whole lot of energy, time, and sovereignty rights in defending in a trade court. And what's a trade court? Who are these people? They're not lawyers, they're not people's representatives, they're not citizens, they're trade courts. I am fascinated by how they can invent these things, these mechanisms through the WTO, etc., to suit the purposes of the corporates. And it just happens to be this time that El Salvador won. And Oceania Gold, not my favourite company because they're ruining my area and have ruined other areas, actually managed to lose this case, but there was something that has been described by, for example, Marcus Aureliano of the Centre for International Environmental Law just said, and I think it's important to quote because this is what investor-state does. It's not a game, it's not a picnic, it's not something that countries need to waste their energy on, but these deals impose it. Quote, regardless of the outcome, the arbitration has had a chilling effect on the development and implementation of public policy necessary to protect the environment and the human right to water. That's how basic this is, the human right to water. Fair trade would protect the human right to water. Free trade, which is only free for the corporates, does the exact opposite. What matters in this world, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair? I won't take a full call, but I will finish my sentence. What matters in this world is water. And if the corporates get control of these things even more than they already have, this country will become yet another casualty, as El Salvador may well still be, despite winning in this obscure trade court. I just want to briefly touch on the ideology behind the TPPA in this bill. And I acknowledge that there have been some useful SOPs being put up to help modify the impact. And one is the fantasy world that the economy is more important than people. And free trade is riddled with this fantasy. The economy is like, it's more than a person. It's a giant person who sometimes has a bad day. The economy, it had a bad day. The economy was struggling. The economy needed help. We give the economy this enormous power over people and give it more validity than people, because otherwise the economy might become unstable. And then and we don't control the economy. It doesn't work for us. We need these trade deals because the economy is so important and powerful and huge that we can't break it down and recognize that it's about people and their rights to trade fairly. And that's what I object to about the TPPA, is that it pretends that these investments are going to benefit people who cannot and have not been able to maintain their rights to trade fairly. The economy, my friends, is just a subset and a tool of human beings' right to live sustainably on the planet with each other and with the environment. And these deals undermine that right and put the economy as if it was a super god, a superhuman force that can't be allowed to have a bad day. So, Mr. Chair, we're opposing this bill because we believe that the economy should work for the people and trade deals should be fair, and that there is more than possible to design rules and regulations that are fair, that acknowledge te tiriti o Waitangi as a fundamental issue of sovereignty, that will acknowledge the rights of citizens to determine their own relationship with the environment, the right to protect your own services and goods, the right to maintain the privilege of living in your own country and saying that you will be considered first rather than some multinational. But I can understand why we are not considered first, because the economy is God. And so the economy must be free, but the people don't get fairness when the economy is God. And that is the problem. We are modelling ourselves supposedly on a model that is failing people all over the world. Why do you think, sorry, Mr. Chair, why do people think that there are massive protests in every country? Because we're all stupid, all of us who protested? Some of us have been doing this since the MAI, the Multi-Allied Investment Agreement, that failed and fell over because of confusion, public objection, brilliant campaigning by some people. We will persist. The TPPA has not been won yet, no matter what game the New Zealand government thinks it's playing. Because globally, and including the United States of America as I speak, people are opposing this. And many, many people have doubts that their own ability to trade fairly will be upheld by this deal. So, talk as much as they like. We do not trust it. And why don't we trust it? Because we've had this fantasy game going on for quite a few years now, and we are still living in a world of gross inequality, gross environmental degradation, and increasing unrest. The plan's not working, the economy is not God, and the TPPA is not what we need. Kia ora tātou katoa.